Okay, so we recently undertook a research project which was a 3-part project, and we specifically looked at teachers' approaches in regards to refugee students and how they are adequately prepared or ill-prepared in this context. The first proposed project that we considered was providing language and literacy support for refugee students.
The second part we looked at was creating an inclusive learning environment and increasing teachers' pedagogy in dealing with refugee students.
And the third part was looking at teacher approaches to dealing with students who are suffering or are going through trauma and conflict.
My literature review presented the notion that teachers are ill-equipped in understanding refugee students, and the current standardised government support program is failing them.
One of the key aspects that we looked at was providing language and literacy support for refugee students, and this revealed many salient facts about the realities of classrooms in modern-day Western societies.
Yeah, that's interesting because the research I synthesised presented the idea that the current action programs set in schools are failing to develop the needs of refugee students.
My literature review revealed that pre-service teachers need to be aware that students who identify as being culturally, linguistically and religiously diverse, they all have varying needs and strengths within a classroom.
Okay.
So it's not just as straightforward as just saying, yeah, okay, I identify as being culturally different to the mainstream. Their language and literacy abilities are going to also be varied as well.
Yeah, so I found the same in my literature review, that students come to class with a lot of previous experience and prior experiences, and especially refugee students have found that they come from traumatic experiences from their previous life.
Yeah.
So you have to really consider that and take that into consideration when you are developing your lessons and when you're going about teaching them, and what examples you're using.
And additionally, the Australian Professional Standards 7.2 comply with legislative, administrative and organisational requirements are in place to support refugee students, but are in short actually failing them.
Okay, so in addition to identifying as being culturally and religiously and linguistically diverse, another important factor that the literature review revealed was the refugee students all had limited prior schooling experience. Which I think is very important in regards to catering for the students' needs within a classroom. So
I noticed that in my literature review, because mine would mention teacher pedagogy, and I feel like all of that comes under teacher pedagogy, knowing how your students learn, knowing how to teach your students, and all of that should be implemented into the lesson plans with a strong, effective teacher pedagogy in place.
Yeah, or even something as simple as making sure that your classroom is a safe environment. Like, that's part of the teaching standards. Yeah. Developing positive relationships with the students, and that was a big thing. Positive
relationships was definitely part of my literature review, and it was an element that, it was a current theme that was constantly occurring. Okay, when it came to independent research, I decided to do interviews, and I interviewed a lot of proficient teachers, lead teachers, and even just a few graduate teachers. Now, the themes that came up a lot was pedagogy, and a lot of the teachers felt like they did not have a sufficient enough teaching pedagogy to deal, or even how to teach refugee students, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I did my data analysis, I did surveys, and I predominantly focused on pre-service teachers, and Larissa focused on
students,
refugee students, I believe. Yeah. I looked at assessing if pre-service teachers felt like they were adequately prepared to provide language and literacy for these diverse refugee students.
And I looked at students' interactions with teacher and whether their prior experiences in school matched up to their experiences in Australian schools, and if their learning needs were met. So I asked a lot of questions in the survey about that.
In the data collection, three of the main aspects that stood out the most for me was that more than 50% of pre-service teachers that I interviewed actually admitted that their current teacher training didn't actually adequately prepare them to address the language and literacy needs of refugee students. Also, 80% of pre-service teachers recalled that they would actually undertake ESL training if it was made available to them during their training. And finally, data collection revealed that pre-service teachers felt that developing a solid and sound rapport with their students was like a key element in regards to being an efficient and effective teacher in the classroom. So understanding their individual backgrounds was important to them.
Yeah, which is like similar to what I found in my survey, was that students felt that they couldn't connect with teachers on that level. I think 80% of students were in the survey felt that the teacher weren't meeting their individual learning needs.
I feel like both of your research is very much, both of your findings came up in my interviews, because the relating and struggling to meet the needs was very common. It came up in pretty much every single person I interviewed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, teachers, I think we're trained as pre-service teachers to believe that students in the classroom have a certain level of language and literacy. We're not trained to understand that, okay, students are going to come in, they're going to be diverse and culturally diverse, religiously diverse, so on. But we all have an expectation that they're at like some certain level of language and literacy.
And refugee students particularly don't come with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they
so
have a deficit in that area.
Yeah.
So just going off what we discovered in our data collection, overwhelmingly all the teachers like unanimously agreed that developing a sound and like a solid rapport with the students was really a crucial element of effective and efficient teaching. And when it came to refugee students, because of their deficit in language and literacy skills, this was quite often problematic and a challenge for teachers.
Yeah, I found that when I was interviewing refugee students, a lot of them were like shy and reluctant to speak to me. So I had a translator in place, which was great. But the students, although they could keep up with the classroom content, they weren't understanding like the threshold concepts, which was a big issue.
So 2 of those actually came through. One was that students were reluctant to ask for help because of the deficit in their literacy and their linguistic skills. And in addition, students were also very reluctant to share their previous life experiences. So a lot of them, because of the sensitivity of the trauma and the conflict that they've witnessed in their prior lives, a lot of them don't want to talk about it. So you have to be really super sensitive about the examples that you use in class. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now that we've spoken about our literature review and our data collection, let's bring all of that into the light and speak about what future research project we're going to propose.
In addition to developing teacher pedagogy, the aim of the next project will focus on measuring the successfulness of specific strategies in catering for the individual learning needs of refugee students. In a similar data collection, a survey will be taken by the students and teachers who will be interviewed to establish the presumptions about refugee student learning. Then teachers will implement different strategies to develop their pedagogy through the following: a participation in university programs such as Refugee Action Support Program, RAS, online courses that both graduate, lead and experienced teachers can undertake, teacher mentoring programs, partnerships with local intensive English centres, community engagement and involvement in culture communities.
Educate yourself in regards to the culture that these students come from, just like informally, like have classroom discussions and get to know the students on a personal level and see how they live at home and what they value and how things get done, and just bring in like the informal real life experiences into the classroom and work around those kind of experiences.
Buddy systems and peer mentoring programs trying to increase interactions with refugee students in the community to ensure that they are not classified as a refugee support group, and an ongoing analysis such as continued research and active data collection in assessing refugee students' needs are being made. To determine which strategies work best, a similar survey will be undertaken by the participating refugee students, and then both surveys will be compared to establish the effectiveness of each strategy. Observations and interviews of the teachers will also take place to analyse the success of each strategy post-implementation. In order to cater for ethical considerations, refugee student participants will have their parents sign a consent form to agree to their participation in the research. The use of the survey data collection will be used in an attempt to cater for the sensitivity of student past experiences. Unlike an interview, using this form of data collection minimizes breaking the ethical standing and overstepping boundaries and causing damaging after effects. For teacher participants, an external interviewer and a set of foundational questions will be used to ensure no bias is present, which in turn will enhance reliability.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, teachers need to become more creative when designing their pedagogy, and quite simply just understand that literacy acquisition doesn't actually occur in a vacuum. So it's not just as simple as like giving out a worksheet or giving out a glossary or like, you know, in regards to the content. They actually need to start engaging in the strengths of refugee students and build on that strength.
And also including them in the planning process as well. So including student ideas and what works best for them in the planning process when planning for lessons. And so the strategies that we want to focus on for our future research task will be peer interaction, teacher-student interaction, and also looking at artifacts of the classroom, so lesson plans, and also the classroom setup.
Yeah.
And the diverse learning needs of the students.
That sounds good.
So that's where we're going from here, having established that to further our research.
Yeah. So from here on, put these elements into place and then reevaluate.
And we'll go from there.
Cool. Okay, sounds good.